Good morning. I'm David Lawrence from McGregor. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the IT Bridge here at McGregor. And today I'm excited that we're going to talk about continuous access policies and specifically around Microsoft Intune and how that best can protect your organization, but still leave people productive and enjoying technology. I'm excited also to introduce my colleague, Michael. Michael's an IT installation engineer here at McGregor. So he's here to bring to life Intune and have that discussion with me. For anybody that's unfamiliar, what is Intune? What is it used for?
So Intune is a cloud management tool. So as we talk about cloud, we're talking about this lives in the internet world. Like, it's not an entity that you can see in front of you or in your office, for example. Mm-hmm. This is a device management tool, firstly. So what it's intended to do is keep an asset, I suppose, of your devices, but equally secure the devices. And that's not just around the devices, it's also around the data that comes from the device.
Right.
So as we'll go on later and speak about, these things involve policies. So we can set up policies that target the device. And these devices could be laptops, mobiles, personal devices, company devices. So yeah, these policies that we'll talk about, conditional access policies, compliance policies, these will define what Intune looks like for a company. Different parameters can be set to kind of manage that device.
Okay, that's really good. So a cloud-based sort of administrative tool that manages the devices, as you said, like an asset list, and then you can apply those policies against those assets.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty relevant. I mean, we don't want to bore people about technology noise, but where we had historically came from in technology, certainly in the last 20, 30 years, people had gone into the office, people had worked in the office.
Yeah.
There was a very structured approach to technology in IT that people would have desktops. Do you remember those?
A bit rigid, probably. Desktop rigid, desktop times have completely changed. Mm-hmm. I think we spoke off camera here about the COVID nature of that.
Yes.
Definitely can't be ignored. We've seen it evidently as the years have gone on. It's just become a norm now. People working from home, remote workers.
Yeah, and where we had used to work by going into that office, that space, it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't just about people being in that space, it was the technology. And those big boxes that we would call servers that had the email on it, email servers, it would have the data on it.
Yeah.
It would be the way to get onto the internet. Those big bulky servers in the server room or sometimes in back cupboards, they've been removed now.
Yes.
As people have moved away more and more to hybrid work and with the technology shifting to cloud. So physical servers moving to still physical servers, but in data centers.
Correct.
And we would call that, or somebody coined the phrase cloud.
Cloud.
So dispersed workforces. So no longer can we put security just in an HQ, a physical building. Security needs to follow the individual with their computer.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that kind of brings us on to conditional access and Intune and what's that. So I guess with anybody unfamiliar with conditional access or Intune, what is that, Michael?
Yeah, so much what you're saying in terms of if we're now in an age where people are potentially using their own devices or they're coming from devices that our company isn't aware of as such, in an environment you described where it would be in the office and things like that, that could be scary because the company wouldn't know exactly what's going on with that device. They wouldn't know how it's configured. Is it bringing vulnerability to the company? So yeah, conditional access is essentially like a set of rules that we can apply again in the background in Intune to inevitably say, or a checklist to say you must meet these parameters before you can access things like your company data or applications and so forth. So these can be set up, company to company. So it's not a hard fast rule that Microsoft would say that you need to meet these parameters because these are Microsoft's government. It's your company. You allow what you wish in and out of that essentially. So conditional access is essentially that. It's a conditional thing that you must meet parameters to kind of get through.
So what you're saying, if I understand correctly, you have uh, a policy, a software. It's a policies that you can create, as you said, to allow machines to access certain bits of information, and then that gets the device, the computer, the phone gets enrolled to that policy, if you like,
Correct.
called
Yeah.
Intune, and then to meet those criteria, what the policy says, that the PC or the phone's going to meet certain criteria.
Yeah.
So maybe an example would be on a phone, it has to have 8-digit password to get onto the phone,
Correct. Yeah.
and maybe the phone needs to be up to date with the latest operating system for security.
Yeah. Correct. So what you can have in conditional access is you can have it where you meet various checklists. So, for example, the user must have multi-factor authentication set up, which is quite a common thing across applications and things nowadays. That multi-factor authentication must be enabled on the user. The device must be compliant.
Right.
So we'll come on to compliance, but the device must meet another set of policy parameters, such as things like the Windows operating system or the Mac operating system, the operating system on it, if it's a mobile phone, how up to date is that? So and again, like I said, these are things that we use as Grant McGregor. Certainly, these are the sort of probably the important things of firewall. Is the firewall enabled? Does it have antivirus software on the device? But you can go a lot more deeper than that. Yeah, you can really hone it down to what devices want to be used in that environment.
That's a good point. I mean, so with all our customers that use, and ourselves that obviously use Intune, a form of continuous access policies, those can be quite straightforward, or they can be quite in depth.
In depth, yeah.
Depth. I was trying to
Yeah.
avoid the word extreme, but
Yeah.
it depends on, I think, on your risk appetite. And you've got a lot of experience rolling out Intune condition access policies. What if you were to choose a customer, not naming the name, what story do you have that's made a difference for them?
Was it in a kind of broad scheme of things? The ones that do come to mind is you have, as you alluded to at the start, a lot of companies that we deal with that are still in maybe that rigid, maybe 20-year-old IT infrastructure. The server is on site, and everyone must come in and do that. So in these environments, these are the best pitch for Intune, because you can alleviate this IT overhead. So, you know, probably the one that comes to mind, mid-sized client, but again, devices were scattered, devices were getting used, personal devices, company devices. They never really had like an asset list to know which users were accessing what. We introduced Intune to them, run a full training session with them to make them understand what's happening in the background with this. Because it can be scary for a lot of users, even if they want to continue to use their personal device. How do they do that? How can they access it through the conditional policy? How do they enroll their phone? In that environment, we could then present the client at the end of that with an asset register, essentially, to say this is all your devices, and only these devices can access company data. Um, as well as that, you have that integration piece with Microsoft with the Identity Manager. So as soon as a user as soon as a user kind of logs in with their device, authenticates with Microsoft's world, it's going through an identity check. So again, that's that extra layer of security that you're adding. But I think for more than anything, I think in this day and age, it just provides that bit more oversight. You know, again, like we're saying about remote workers, and I said at the start about, there's just too many potential devices that are, sporadically scattered around the country, and a company just wants to get reined in on that, kind of ring fence their IT again.
So those are all great points. I know from my own experience that customer you're talking about was a new customer that we put on that journey, didn't we?
Yeah.
Across to from onboarding and then over to Intune. I think in today's world with predominantly most organizations using Office 365, as you were saying earlier, conditional access allows that next level of security where you're not just reliant on username and password to log in a 365. You actually require an enrolled, trusted Intune device for it to authenticate completely. So, in the world of threat actors, that's great because if somebody gets hold of your password, now there's ways to trick and manipulate two-factor authentication. It means that the threat actor would actually need to be physically on your machine. So this is a great barrier to a threat actor, a bad person getting access to your data, as well as, just good security hygiene, making sure, as you said, that the device is up to date, it's patched, it's got antivirus, it's got a firewall. Those checks and balances are critical for if people do choose to have personal devices enrolled.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing, of course. And it's coming from an IT perspective, IT administrator's perspective. It's a lot of help for us, because we can certainly just have clock eyes on a machine to see if it needs action, that it needs care. So the way I kind of dress up to a customer or a client, the way I kind of pitch it, is a kind of ring fence. This is what you're kind of setting up, a ring fenced area that anything in and out of that has to have some kind of condition behind it. And that normally gets most people understanding what it's doing. So yeah, that's quite a good sort of analogy, I suppose, to use.
Without Intune, somebody could just use, and people do choose can log into a home computer that belongs to them just with the username and password into 365.
Correct, yeah.
And you don't know what is on the home computer or whatever computer somebody chooses. They might not be, on Windows 11, might be on Windows 10. Might not have antivirus, might not have a firewall. All these issues can arise. Ultimately, the threat to the organization of that PC, that endpoint, not properly protected. So as you said, just that Intune policy just guarantees before they sign in that it's meeting a set of criteria.
Correct.
Which is
Yeah,
great.
it's good peace of mind as well for maybe the company or the higher up directors potentially to know that they're behind that ring fence that I call, so.
And if a computer is lost or stolen, what protection does Intune provide there?
Again, this is something that potentially could be missed in a direct comparison with that server office environment. You're giving the machine a device to someone that you may not see for a year, a couple of months, So to have that remote element of, lost, stolen, misplaced, whatever, Intune's got the ability, first and foremost, to wipe company data.
Right.
So what it can do is it can wipe essentially the user profile, the user from the device, so that basically the laptop works as an independent laptop or device. But secondly, what it can do also is it can wipe the device entirely. So what I mean by that is that it can completely restore the device back to factory settings just from a click of a button within Intune. So that's very powerful in the sense of, especially if it's a security element of the device being lost or misplaced, left on a bus. We've had these scenarios before. A customer, a client can just call us and we can instantly just wipe that device. And it's very powerful, and it's something that a lot of clients, usually get the eyebrow raiser when we can speak about that like that, because that's how powerful Intune can be.
And you made a good point, I think, about the separation of personal and business. So people that are worried that, because there are organizations out there that will have a mix of organizationally owned computers
Yeah.
or phones, or
Yes.
smartphones, and there'll be organizations out there with a mix of that and people that will use personal smartphones or sometimes computers. Uh, what do you say to those people that say, that are, or the leadership in those organizations that, again, push back from employees or colleagues saying, well, no, I don't want to enroll my personal phone for business because of, I don't want you monitoring my internet. I don't
Yeah.
this or this or that.
Yeah.
What is the solution there?
It's an understanding piece again.
Hmm.
So it's setting the tone of what Intune's there to do effectively. It's not there to pry and spy and look at people's devices. It's there to protect, essentially. It's primarily its goal. So yeah, we would be speaking to people about personal devices. We'd be encouraging them and even showing them, like giving them a demonstration of, an example device or a device that we can show them that's enrolled to Intune, a mobile phone that's enrolled to Intune. What areas can you access? A good example of it is, for example, if you've enrolled an Android mobile phone,
Right.
it's very good in the sense where it creates a completely different profile on the mobile phone for your work area. So you can straight away see that distinct, difference, personal, work. It's very good at doing that, and Apple does it similar as well. So it's explaining to people that there is that separation. Your device is still your device. Well, we need to protect the company. We need to protect the client. So we need to have these policies being monitored and checking the device. So
when we talk about offboarding and that staff member's personal device has been enrolled,
yes,
all the Intune does is just remove, as you said, those company applications
correct.
and data. Doesn't affect,
No,
photographs, their own
No.
personal email,
no.
their applications, but it just gives the organization that security that when somebody leaves,
The company leaves with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And that's it's trying to get across that. And we've had that addressed us a few times from clients apprehensive of enrolling. They're okay with the company element of it, but enrolling their personal devices. What is the company privy to see? What can they see? What can they see? Browsing history? Can they see photos, videos? It's nothing like that. It's essentially us, putting the company information on the phone. It's not extracting things from the phone or devices. So
and I know from my own personal phone here at Grant McGregor that, I've enrolled it into Intune, very straightforward process, and the Outlook appears, other business applications, Word, whatever else appears, and I've got access to OneDrive on my phone.
Yeah.
And I know that if I was to remove that device from Intune, those applications, that data would be removed, but not my personal data.
yeah,
We've talked about enrolling a device, and you've talked about the compliancy aspect, that it needs to meet the device needs to meet the compliancy of the policy that the customer decides,
yes,
not us or Microsoft.
no, correct.
But so what happens when a device becomes or isn't compliant or comes out of compliance, say? And maybe that's a two-part question. Why would it come out of compliance, say? And then what happens?
Again, if we speak about the parameters that we set for the compliance policy, so whatever that may be, that's what Intune's checking for daily. So if it feels that for whatever reason this has fallen out of compliance, i.e., the operating system, it's on Windows 10, on Windows 11, the firewall or antivirus has been uninstalled from the machine for whatever reason, then Intune will flag this and mark the device non-compliant.
Okay.
How you direct that and what you want to happen after that stage, once it's been identified, is again a personal decision at that point for the company. You can notify the user to give them allowance to correct this issue, correct what's happened here, or you can permanently, disable the device from accessing company information from that point. From that point, it's been recognized. You can just disable it. So again, very powerful, because again, it gives that option for the company to say, we understand things happen. We're giving you, say, 2 days, 3 days to correct this. If it's a personal device, I think that's quite generous. I think the company has a different perspective of protecting the company. The user perspective will be protecting their device. So there is a bit of a sort of fine line there, but yeah, it's personalization of the policies is important.
And you were saying, Michael, about talking about what happens when a device isn't compliant. I think we've got some really great tools that we use to notify the person that's using the devices, as you said, and the administrator, so the key contact of the client, and ourselves. And it really just makes that whole provision of using Intune proactive when a device when it falls out of compliance, because that can be a bit annoying sometimes. You want to give people a little bit of leeway, but also making sure, do you know what, it is out of compliance for a reason. So
yeah,
and
that's a good point you make, actually, about the proactive nature, because I feel as if that's what Intune's very good at, is picking up things before they arise and allowing you to act on them. Much like what we would describe like a patch management tool would do, like looking for updates on the machine and various things. Intune can do this too, to a certain extent. So yeah, that proactive nature is quite good.
And what if I was to bring an organizational device or computer, or a personal computer, doesn't matter really, and I want to start working with the organization? How does that, talk us through how that computer gets enrolled from maybe the user's perspective?
I think we touched on it earlier. So the experience, I suppose, for a company device, a company-owned device that was handed to a user, or a personal device, is slightly different. They can differ. But if we touch on, for example, what a user would do with a personal device,
Okay.
it's a very easy process. Is they would go into their local app store, whether that be Play Store, Apple App Store, and they would download the Intune company portal app.
Okay.
Now this app, as you go through it, it would just enroll the device. It would ask you for your email address, authenticating you with the company. Then it would enroll your device after a couple of checks. Importantly, what this does is that, and what we maybe not touched on yet, is that then it can also deploy these applications that we were speaking about. So they can either be automatically pushed to the device, or they can be an optional sense. So it opens up another app store, which is a company app store. So you would go into your company portal app on your phone, you would click on the app store, and you'd have verified applications that would allow you to just personally download them, and knowing that they're verified to use company data. So yeah, the personal element of it is very easy, and we generally talk people through it, but most people are quite okay with that. I use the apps on their phone and various things. So,
and I know when I've rolled in, my Mac, last year, as you said, I just went to the Mac store, found the app,
correct,
and asked my 365 username and password and 2FA, happy days. And pushed out the apps, and before I know it, I had the
Working.
Office suite and the Outlook
Yeah.
on my machine. So it was
Yeah.
very, very clinical, very straightforward. I think just to highlight again, I think it's really important that from a zero trust perspective that we all talk about in the world of IT now and security, is that it's saying in line with the policy that we would influence, but is ultimately decided by the customer, that the machine has to be compliant against certain conditions,
Yeah.
hence the word continuous access. So virus, firewall, operating system. So very often, too often, that Windows machines, Apple Macs, iPhones, Android devices, they're continuously updating the operating system, you know, 1.1x or 2.
Correct. Yeah.
So there's always an X
Yeah.
every other week. So, and that X normally is about a security vulnerability that one of those manufacturers have discovered.
Yeah. Most often. Yeah.
And they make public, right? So if a threat actor is very much aware of what those security vulnerabilities are, as an individual, we want to, and as an organization, we want to make sure that those devices are up to date and critically have those security updates pushed to them, which then Intune will say, do you know what, you're in or out of compliance because you do or do not have that security update.
Yeah, yeah, that's important. And I think it again, kind of touching again on personal devices, is that a company can have their own internal policies, I suppose, written policies, written usage policies, and or whatever they may be. But essentially, the user's device is their personal device, so they are liable for we've had situations where a company is to ask for our advice on maybe an Intune policy, like an Intune written policy that they could pass to the users to say, you adhere to this, you adhere to that, you must make sure your phone's updated, etc., etc. So they can have it in black and white that they've agreed to this, and if there is a risk or something that's happened to the company, or you know something's a threat's been detected, then they can hold maybe potentially the user to this policy. So we've had that scenario as well, where you know we want to encourage people to go on Intune, we want to encourage this security element. We don't want to scare people off it. So
And as you said, I think the not just individuals, but we see often in certain sectors, so the digital design space, marketing space, there's always one other organization that uses contractors.
yeah,
And I always think it's like the analogy of somebody sharing the dirty handkerchief with somebody else.
yeah,
A contractor will typically say, well, I don't want my device to be enrolled. Okay, well, there's the options there are, so critically what you want to do is make sure that if that contractor's accessing your data, that meets its own continued access. So, does it have virus protection?
yeah,
All those kind
yeah,
of stuff. And if it doesn't, do you really want that device accessing your
correct.
data? So I wouldn't force Intune or continuous access policy on a contractor. I would at least say you need to meet our written policy, as you said. So
Yes.
you need to have this and this, and you need to show that you're managing it. Best case, which we always recommend, is that the contractor does enroll their device,
Yes.
because then you know that that device isn't the weakest link. Because as we know from security, it's the weakest
link.
link
Yeah.
is always the way into. And sometimes that can be the device, sometimes that can be an individual
Correct.
or an application. But you want to make sure that everybody that's accessing, as you use that analogy of ring fence,
Yeah.
is using the best and up to date.
The last thing, or the last resort you want to be doing, is making exceptions for people. As you said, you're only as strong as your
Chain.
your chain. Yeah. So if you're allowing this contractual situation, contractors coming in, yeah, I think it's maybe just maybe a bit more having the discussion with people, or with as maybe a freeway discussion between the administrator, the client, and the contractor, and again, just really enforcing what Intune is doing here and what it's intended to do. If we set exceptions, it's not doing what we've said it's going to do. So the understanding piece as well. And generally, when you use some analogies for people or contractors or clients, and it touches home with them, they do understand it and they do adhere to it. They understand how important security is. They sometimes just need our help to guide them, of course. So
And in the world of cloud technology, so everything moving to big data centers across the UK and Europe, accessing your data, I think one common perspective that's overlooked is that people access in Office 365, sorry, or access in 365, really can log on from any device. I mean, you can control geolocation, so you can save already
yes,
from,
correct.
but still they can log on to any device. So, again, using Intune, you're saying username, password, two-factor authentication, so text message or app,
Yeah,
and that device needs to be enrolled. So only that, when you're on that device, can you access, which I think some people don't really are not aware of. As we said earlier, I just would put the fear of God into me that anybody in our organization could log on to any device and access company data.
correct.
Not that we trust them, but
Yes,
what is the device and where it's located.
yeah,
So that really just helps me sleep at night, knowing that
of course.
us, and I know our customers would say the same, that they can sleep at night knowing that their fleet of computers or endpoints, their own, or bring your own devices, that they're properly maintained and compliant.
A lot of the argument would be in kind of backpedaling to the sort of static nature of the server in the office thing, sort of thing again. And a lot of people that we speak to, other IT experts and so forth, maybe still stuck in this environment where they maybe still there is still an element of that, and there's still need for it, of course, the different niche situations and things like that. But what I think, like I said, Intune does very well is this. I think it just opens up things. I mean, you're talking about geolocation and stuff. That's another conditional access that you can put on. I think I touched on it at the very start. It's maybe something that you couldn't potentially do for an on-premise environment.
Yeah.
Is to know like the direct location of that device and where it's accessing from.
Well, I think we've covered a lot on continuous access policies, and specifically Intune, Microsoft's Intune. And I think what we've agreed on and brought to life is it's the benefits of having it, the reassurance of having those policies and those compliances on those devices for security, and make sure that you're maintaining the quality and who can and where he can access your data. So
Yeah,
I think we've just hopefully dismissed or removed the fear for organizations moving to Intune, and it doesn't have to be this uh, big culture change.
yeah, yeah.
And as you said, we work with organizations to put the right level of risk, depending on the risk appetite. So we put the right level of policies in place on the continuous access policies, and that training and that culture of bringing everybody on board. So I think it just hopefully removes the fear,
Fear of people. Yeah,
but certainly the benefits that, and your organization reputation is protected.
there's situations where you will have especially again for a personal device, people are very apprehensive with it. But I suppose the way you would want to look at it is, who would you rather managing your device? An unauthenticated user logging in from somewhere around the world, or an IT company that supports your company.
Yeah.
That's the way to look at it. So if your device isn't with an Intune and it's not patched and it's not got all these compliance elements around it, it is vulnerable. It is vulnerable to someone else. And that's what we just need to get across.
Well, I love my car analogies, Michael, as you know, and I think, if if you have a modern car and it's as a service plan, and I think cars are somewhat monitored these days as well. But you wouldn't want to be running around in a car
No,
which has flat tires,
exactly.
poorly maintained brakes, et cetera, et cetera. You want an organization, a car garage that's maintaining those at least
Yeah,
every so often. Go, yeah, you shouldn't be driving that if it doesn't meet the standard. And
correct.
and
Yeah,
Intune is the same.
yeah.
So, Michael, thank you for joining us on the IT Bridge today. It's been lovely,
I'm
great
good to have a
talking to
chat. Yeah,
you about Intune in the world of continuous access policies, and I hope you enjoyed that discussion. And again, thank you for joining us on the IT Bridge today and to talk about Intune and Microsoft. And we'll catch you soon.